Szilard Boberly.
Catherine Hedin.
And however you say that, Boberly.
Anna Swerzinska, I'm going to say.
Ashraf Fayyad. I'll script this name too. Abdelatif Labi. How do you know how you say that?
Lydia Dimkovska, I'm going to say.
Pedro Cabaya?
I'm going to say Jacob, even though it's probably Jacob.
Is it Ladivine? How did you say that? Ladivine? I want to say Ladivine. The Ladivine.
Antonina W. Buis. I don't know how to say that name.
I was waiting to see how you'd pronounce that.
How would you pronounce that?
I have no idea.
Emotion is a concept. A concept of love.
Welcome to the 3% Podcast. This is Chad Post with Open Letter Books, and I'm here with Tom Roberts from Riff Raff.
Hello.
And this is a special 3% edition, I suppose, because just this morning, the Best Translated Book Award longlist for 2017 were announced. And so I thought we would take this whole podcast and just read through each one of the long-listed titles, give any comments that we might have about them one way or another. And so you get our 2-bit commentary. We're not just going to recite this. We'll have opinions that you won't agree with. And then go through any surprises that might have been left off or that made it that we didn't expect to make it.
Right. Bear in mind that some of these opinions that you might not agree with will also be uninformed opinions. So
oh, yeah. This is 100% uninformed.
There's just no way to have read all these books.
No.
You're not superhuman.
No, there is not. So we want to start with the poetry, right?
Yes, which the poetry long list is 10.
Yeah. Should we say, okay, so for the poetry, we're just going to jump in here. I don't know. Did you have any witty banter to begin with, or should we just go with this?
I have no witty banter. So you want to read off like the first 5 and then I'll do the last 5?
Sure. I do want to say, first of all, that the poetry jury was made up of Jared Annis from Greenlight Bookstore, Katrine Ogard Jensen from Europe Now, Tess Lewis, who's a writer and translator, and who, surprisingly, spoiler alert, is on the fiction long list. Becca McKay is a writer and translator, and Emma Ramadan, who is translator and co-owner of Riff Raff Bookstore. So
that's right. She's in the other room if you would like her opinion.
She can because her opinion would be informed.
What? Yeah, we are. I do have some things to pass along about one of them. So.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. So I'll read the first 5 then and make comments after each one. Or we can jump in after each one. The first book on the list is Berlin Hamlet by Szilard Boberly, translated from the Hungarian by Attili Mulzet. And Boberly is from Hungary, and this is published by New York Review Books. And however you say that, Boberly has another book that came out from HarperCollins this past year, called The Dispossessed. And both of these were recommended to me by the bookstore, the Penn Book Center in Philadelphia, when I was there with Declan Spring from New Directions for the MLA conference. So I've been sort of interested in these ever since, but I haven't picked them up yet.
She had another poetry collection published by HarperCollins?
No, it's a novel.
It's a novel. I was going to say, since when does HarperCollins do poetry?
It's called The Dispossessed, yeah. And it's a novel.
Okay. Well, New York Review of Books has excellent taste, as we well know. I would not say they're the most experimental authors at all times. Not in the vein of like Open Letter, for example, or even New Directions. But they definitely, everything is top notch with them. If a little too staid sometimes. So I don't know anything about this, but they have a reputation, so I'm sure probably fits in with that. Is the author still alive or no?
Oh, that's a good question. I do not know. Author info, hold on, I'll tell you in a second. One thing I was going to say, he died in 2014.
He died.
He died. So not too many years ago. I should mention that Attili Mulzet won the Best Translated Book Award for her translation of Siobo There Below.
Yep.
So there's that. Okay, moving on. Second book on the list, Of Things by Michael Donhauser, translated from the German by Nick Hoff and Andrew Joran. And Dannhauser is from Austria, and this is published by Burning Deck Press. And Burning Deck Press is experimental and interesting and wild. And I don't know if they've ever won, but I feel like they should.
I don't think they've ever won. No. I feel like I would know that.
Yeah, they really... I'm surprised. I think Burning Deck has a book on almost every single poetry long list so far. They do, basically. More or less, but they have not won. That's correct.
No. They're here, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Emma is a big fan. Emma went around. Emma's a big fan of everything they do, so I know she liked this book.
Keith and Rosemary Waldrop are the two people behind Burning Deck. Also great translators in their own right if you aren't familiar with them, but they're spectacular.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to screw this up. The third book on the list is Instructions Within by Ashraf Fayyad, translated from the Arabic by Mona Karim, Mona Zaki, and Jonathan Wright. Fayyad is from Palestine, and this is from a press called Operating System, which is a new one to me. And their website to link to the book makes me go to their Square Up ordering page, which is dumb.
This is the one that Emma wanted to pass on the following information, which is that this author is in prison and has been sentenced to death, although that has not been carried out yet. And Penn, in some capacity, is lobbying to get him released. I believe he's in prison for having written this book.
Oh, wow.
And she said it was really good. And Operating System, by the way, is a small Brooklyn publisher, and I think they do very, very fancy sort of editions. All of them are, sort of like these precious object sorts of things, which I would imagine means sort of limited print runs and that sort of thing.
Makes sense.
But I don't know. I can't verify that. All I know is that they are beautiful books in and of themselves as physical objects.
Very cool. Well, hopefully if he wins, he is released before then. That would be horrible. The next one, fourth book, is Cheer Up Femme Fatale by Gideon Kim, translated from the Korean by Ji-yoon Lee, Dan-mi Choi, and Johan Skorensen. Kim is from South Korea, and this is published by Action Books. I actually recommended this for the Korean Book Prize. I've read this one, and I like it. It's crazy. South Korean, experimental Korean poetry is very out there and wild and pretty interesting and sort of politically aggressive and very much like body and language in experimental, if that makes any sense. And Action Books does a lot of great stuff. They've been on the list a bunch of times as well, although I'm not certain that they've won either.
Right. I see their name all the time on these lists, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they have won, but they're really cool. And Dan-mi Choi is great. She gave the what do you call it? The keynote address at Alta this past year.
Oh, cool.
And then I guess the fifth one is the last I read, which I'll script this name too, In Praise of Defeat by Abdelatif Labe, translated from the French by Donald Nicholson Smith. Labi, how do you know how you say that? Is from Morocco, and it's published by Archipelago Books, and it's a fat ass book.
Yeah.
It is a goddamn brick. It is a cube. It is barely rectangular shaped in any way, and I can see it from across the room on the bookshelf because it's so large and thick.
Yeah, I can see it here too. Emma also loved this. She's actually doing an event with Donald, the translator. Oddly enough, the night of the announcement of the final award, May 4th. We'll see if Jill decides to move the event, if possible, to accommodate Donald perhaps being there in person. He lives in New York, so
right,
could perhaps be there if he wants. I don't know if you've ever met him, but I love Donald.
Yeah.
He does the Manchette translations. Yep. And he's just a great guy. He won the French, whatever it's called, Heritage Translation Prize a couple of years ago for one of the Manchette books.
Okay.
He's really good. He knows what he's doing. I read something that he had translated years and years. He did an edition of Debord way back in 85.
Yep, 1994, Society of the Spectacle. Oh, There might be an earlier one. Nope, that's the earliest one.
That's the one? Okay, so it's pretty early. It is no longer the one that is like in wide circulation, but there's also nobody holds the rights to it. DeBoer stipulated that it be in the public domain. So there are competing editions, and you can just go download a copy if you want to in PDF format pretty easily. But a lot of people do say that his edition of this is pretty good. Anyway, back to the lobby book. It is massive, and apparently, from what Emma tells me and from what other people have said, it is very impressive. So,
2 notes about this. One for Donald Nicholson Smith. The best part from his bio is this: he joined the English section of the Situationist International in 1965 and was expelled in December 1967. And also, while we're on Archipelago Books, congratulations to Jill Schoolman, founder and publisher of Archipelago Books, for being the winner of this year's Ottaway Prize for International Literature Promotion. I'm not sure what the full title is, but it's given out by Words Without Borders, and she's the recipient this year. So she'll be honored at their special gala in November or October, later this fall.
Yes. All right, moving on here. Extracting the Stone of Madness by Alejandro Pizarnik, translated from the Spanish by Yvette Siegert. Pizarnik was from Argentina, and this is published by New Directions. This is one of, I want to say, 4 books.
I think it's 5.
5 in recent years by Pizarnik, all of them by...
Oh, sorry. I'm not sure about that. I thought you said 5 on the whole list.
Oh, no. That she is like a one-woman force of nature when it comes to Pizarnik, trying to get everything into English and published as quickly as possible, and she's doing a damn good job. I like Pizarnik's poetry. I haven't read this one, although I think part of this is the pamphlet that New Directions published.
I think that's right.
Right, which would make like 10% of this. So
yeah.
Anyway, I think if I were a betting man, I might put some money on this one.
Interesting.
Up next, Thief of Talent by Pierre Reverdy, translated from the French by Ian Seed. Reverdy was from France, and this is published by Wakefield Press, the small press in Massachusetts.
Yep, and they're awesome. They do pretty books. Reverdy has another book that's available from New York Review Books, I believe. So he could have been on here twice.
Oh, you mean this year?
No, it came out in 2013. I was just double checking.
Okay.
But yeah, he has had other books and that were. I don't think that this one made the long list, the one from New York Review Books, but he does have that available.
Sound familiar.
I'm glad that he didn't on the other one, because there's like 14 translators, and that's always a pain in the ass to like write out and make sure they're all spelled correctly on all of these forms. So thank God.
Which is all it matters. Well, how much work do you have to do?
It's really like, I'm looking at this like, there's literally 14 of them. Jesus. Anyway.
Up next, Tasks, with a lowercase t, I would like to add, by Victor Rodriguez Nunez, translated from the Spanish by Catherine Hedin. Nunez is from Cuba, and this is from Coim Press.
I was waiting to see how you'd pronounce that.
How would you pronounce that?
I have no idea. Coim Press is how I guess I would do it, but I don't know if that means something.
It's CO-IM-press. So.
Oh, you know what it stands for? It stands for collaborative, cooperative, and immediate.
Shouldn't there be another co then?
Yeah, it should be like Coco-M.
I don't understand. I don't know anything about this, do you?
Just that they have a website, and that one of the sections is called Downstate Legacies, and it says Downstate Legacies is a book publishing collaboration among the publication unit partners at Illinois State University, the Creative Writing and Publishing Club at University High School in Normal, Illinois, and Co-Im Press, which distributes and promotes books upon publication. And they have one book available through that. But since I used to be at Illinois State, that part stood out.
This cover, I will say, is the one that has been catching my eye of all the ones that have been sitting in piles around our apartment.
In a positive way or a negative way?
I think in a positive way. I'm into it.
Okay. It's a chicken or rooster.
No, I think that would be a chicken. There's an egg there.
Okay. Yeah, the top part's confusing.
Yeah. Anyway, Like I said, I don't know anything about this. To say to any more would be slanderous, I see.
Fair enough.
Oh, that's the wrong long list. Okay, two more. Building the Barricade by Anna Swerzinska, I'm going to say.
That's probably pretty right.
Translated from the Polish by Piotr Florzik. The author is Polish, and this is from Tavern Books, another publisher I do not know.
Tavern Books is in Portland. They actually have an office inside of like the Union train station there. And they're really cool. They've been funded by the Lannan Foundation in the past. What's funny is this book almost wasn't at all like even included because Anna, how do you say it? Swizernik? Niska? Whatever. She has another book called Building the Barricade and Other Poems under the name Anna Swir, with the rest of her name cut off. But that poem is very, very short and makes up like a fraction of this book. So it was eligible, but I have her in the database so many different ways because they're all two, with the full name and with just Swir. And both of the books that she has are the same title.
That is very strange.
Very confusing.
Yes. Lastly, Antigona Gonzalez by Sarah Uribe, translated from the Spanish by John Pluker. The author is Mexican, and this is from Les Figues.
I know John, and he's really cool, so I'm glad that he's on here.
I don't know anything about this one, I have to say.
And Les Figues does a lot of interesting books. They're pretty out there, and sometimes it's even out there in terms of the book publication. Like there's one that came out years ago from them that the binding was essentially like screws, like through the binding of the book that's holding it together, like 3 big bolts.
Jesus. Well, why not?
They're very, very artistic and like in that vein.
All right, on to the long list.
Can I go back and forth on this one?
No, just read a few, and I don't know. I'll tell you when to stop.
Okay. The first one for the long list for fiction 2017 is The Queue by Basma Abdel Aziz, translated from the Arabic by Elizabeth Jacquet. Aziz is from Egypt, and this is published by Melville House. Which I used this book in my class. And I talked to Lizzie last week on Thursday. It's pretty interesting. I think that this book has a shot at winning, mostly because it is sort of weirdly prophetic, and for an American perspective, it's weirdly prophetic in the way that like it has this sort of quasi dystopian authoritarian rule that takes place. It's filled with like things like fake news and various other crazy bits to it. From a Egyptian perspective, I think they saw it as a lot funnier than maybe you do from the American perspective, because they've been living under like this authoritarian sort of regime for so long that some of the stuff that's being like satirized strikes them as funnier from an Egyptian readership than it does an American one, where you're just like, oh shit, like this is horrible. It's pretty straightforward. It's got a good chance. I think it would be a shortlisted title.
Okay. I don't know anything about it.
It's pretty cool. Like the main bit is that a guy's getting shot during like an uprising by the police, but because they don't want there to be any evidence that there's ever any shooting by the police, they set up all these situations whereby you have to get, like in a Kafkaesque way, the right kind of forms to be able to get the bullet removed, because there is no bullet, because there's no shooting, right? And it's basically like a chronicle of a number of different people who are involved with waiting in line to try and get something from the government, which is unnamed, but is clearly like the Egyptian government, all of which isn't going to work out for them.
So very optimistic is what you're saying.
People said that they thought the ending was really optimistic, and we actually discussed that in class, because I read it as the main character just dying, and that being the end. And the optimism is that the character has been sort of your stand-in as the reader for the whole book. By the end is like, you know what, I need to do something about this. I need to go take that bullet out, but it's too late. But at least he's awake to the situation. But it's pretty. There's moments that are kind of darkly funny, and it's not like an overall depressing book, but at the core idea, it's pretty dark.
Next,
The Young Bride by Alessandro Barrico. Translated from the Italian by Anne Goldstein. Barrico's from Italy, and this is from Europa Editions.
So I knew the name, but had totally forgotten what his other books were, and I looked them up. I thought they had all been with Europa, which is totally not true. This is the first with Europa, and I think most famously he wrote the book Silk, which got turned into a movie. I don't know much about this. My impression, honestly, just based on covers and sort of discussions about them that you would overhear in bookstores or whatever, is that they're sort of literary, but not particularly like a little domestic and not too experimental or anything like that. Just like super well written, like stories about people's lives kind of thing. Am I wrong?
That sounds about right to me. Like that from the little I know. I haven't read any of them.
Yeah. I think there are two from Europa on here. There's another one below, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Anne Goldstein, of course, is the translator of the entire, Ferrante series.
Of the Ferrante everything.
Yeah.
So the next one is Wicked Weeds by Pedro Caballa, translated from the Spanish by Jessica Powell, and Caballa is from the Dominican Republic, and this is from Mandel Villar Press, which is a new press that started up not too long ago, I think like maybe 2 years ago, and this is one that gets referenced as being part of like the speculative fiction end of things on the list, and I believe it involves zombies.
Yes. And in fact, the first line of the copy is a Caribbean zombie, smart, gentlemanly, financially independent, and a top executive.
This is one that you say, I'm out. I'm not going to read this book. I'm sure it's great. I don't have any interest in zombies, especially ones that are smart and gentlemanly.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, I can do sci-fi. This kind of thing is not really my thing.
Yeah. Sounds crazy, though.
It does sound crazy. Jessica Powell has definitely been on these lists before, correct?
I don't think so. I don't have her in my database. Really? The only other book that she shows up as having translated was Where There's Love, There's Hate, in which she... Wait, is this true? No. Yeah, she co-translated this with Suzanne Jill Levine. And it's the Adolfo Bioy Casares and Silvino Ocampo book that Melville House did. But that's the only other one that's listed that I'm seeing. I might just be missing something, though.
Oh.
I don't have the full database open right now, and I'm not touching it because my computer loves to crash. So I'm searching online.
And this press is dedicated to publishing books like this.
Well,
right?
Not entirely, because one of the other books that they have coming out is a book called Kill the I don't know how to say it without it sounding sort of racist, but it's Kill the Empire, like Ampaya, which is like umpire pronounced by Latin American, and it's an anthology of Latin American writers writing about baseball.
Okay.
Which we actually had considered for a time.
So it says advancing diversity and conservation in publishing. It's a two-pronged tack there. Diversity and conservation.
Interesting. Anyway. Okay. Next one. Oh, what's that?
I don't think that's going to win, but I'm glad it's on the list.
Me too. You know? Yeah, it's good that there's a lot of diversity on this list in terms of like the range of books from speculative end of things to more straightforward realism to more experimental stuff. So next one is our book, actually, Chronicle of the Murdered House by Lucio Cardoso, translated from the Portuguese by Margaret Joel Costa and Robin Patterson. Cardoso is from Brazil, and this is from Open Letter Books. This is our one book on here, and this book is fat and long and amazing.
Emma started reading it this morning, so
it's so good.
She is very intrigued. I have to say, just from the description, it doesn't sound like my kind of book, but I would like to be happily proven wrong.
I don't know. It depends. It's got like a lot of like secrets that go on between like the family, and it's basically they're all just corrupt and there's a lot of incest and wannabe incest and affairs, and everything's falling apart, and it's got a very Faulkner sort of edge that way. But it also feels like reading a Penguin classic that if you read it in high school, you'd be like, this is like this is why I want to read books. It's very well. It's very good. And Margaret Jill Costa, we should mention it here, is on here 4 times.
Yes.
Which is insane. I was going to look to see if anyone's even come close to this, but I just haven't had time. I don't think so. I don't think there's any way anyone has 4 books on a list. And I'll do one more here for the next one, because it's her again, is On the Edge by Rafael Cherbes, translated from the Spanish by Margaret Joel Costa. Oh, and she's on here for 2 languages, too, Portuguese and Spanish. This one's translated from the Spanish by Margaret Joel Costa. Cherbes was from Spain, and this is from New Directions.
Yes, this was published early last year, and is, I mean, we've talked about it before, but it's basically the chronicle of how these Spanish people try to, they're a little older, a couple generations, but older. I mean, we have characters from 2 different generations, but definitely on the older side, trying to deal with the economic collapse following what happened in 2008 and spread globally. And Jesus Christ, it is dark and pessimistic and really, really can be tough to read, but it feels like you have to read, not out of like obligation, but because just you can't look away. It's like a spectacular, like massive train wreck through these people's lives. And, the gory details are, of course, fascinating in the process. And it's weird to watch it unfold the way it does for these people's lives. And I don't know, you keep thinking things are going to work out, and of course, they aren't. And I don't know. It's beautifully, beautifully written.
So I'm going to point out here, because we're going to go through this, and this is the 2nd Spanish book so far. There are 9 Spanish books on this long list. Of those 9, how many do you think will make the short list, and will this be one of them?
Oh, God. How many from the Spanish will make the short list? Okay. I'm not so sure this will make it.
I don't think so either. I have a feeling that... Okay, we'll get to that one. Yeah, so far we've had Wicked Weeds, which I'm going to say...
This one?
And this one. I'm going to say maybe not to both of them.
It's not going to... I don't think either one is going to make it, no. No. I'm scrolling through here very quickly. No. Maybe. I'm going to say 2.
Okay, we'll see when we get to those.
And I will tell you which ones when we get
there. I'm trying to pick out 10 here, and I can't do that. Okay, why don't you read some?
Okay, next is Eve Out of Her Ruins by Ananda Devi, translated from the French by Jeffrey Zuckerman. The author is from Mauritius, and this is published by Deep Vellum. Have you read this yet?
No, it's floating around the office, and I see it, and I've seen a lot of people really like it, and I just have not picked it up at all.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat. Everyone seems to like it. I just can't. For whatever reason, it hasn't grabbed me yet.
To be honest, I can't even tell you what it's about at this moment in time.
I definitely looked when I found out this was being published. I looked at the French edition when I was still working at Albertine, and I've completely forgotten, to be honest.
Yeah, it's basically a heartbreaking look at the dark side of the island is the first part of the jacket copy. And, that's the whole jacket copy that I came up with. Wait, that can't be it. Oh, here it is. Okay, yeah. It's a tale of 4 young Mauritians trapped in the country's endless cycle of fear and violence. Eve, whose body is her only weapon and source of power. Savita, Eve's best friend, the only one who loves Eve without self-interest, who has plans to leave but will not go alone. Sadiq, gifted would-be poet, inspired by Rimbaud, in love with Eve. Clelio, belligerent rebel, waiting without hope for his brother to send for him from France. Sounds like sounds good. Sounds like the sort of thing that would be like, got to sit down and heavy about the country's history, and not going to be uplifting.
Yeah, although it sounds like the kind of thing I would like.
Yeah,
anyway.
Yeah.
Next, Zama by Antonio Di Benedetto, translated from the Spanish by Esther Allen. Di Benedetto is from Argentina, and this is from
I think this of the Spanish ones will make it.
Yes, I agree. I think it's this one, and
I also use this in my class. So far, 2 books that I've used in my class, which I'm gonna.
Is it good? Everyone loves this book.
Yes. Some of the people in the class really loved it. There's one kid who in particular is the biggest fan of this, and he's planning on promoting it for our little class award. And then there's a couple of people who are like, it's fine, but it also feels like it's classic in the sense that like we've already seen this so many times since then, it doesn't feel as fresh anymore. And I can see that viewpoint as well. But it's really good. It's got a good delusional character's voice. Esther took a lot of time translating it. We had a good discussion with her about like the burdens of translating something that's so important to like Argentine writing and like the weight of that, and having to try and like get out from under the sort of internal pressure of translating something like that. And that's pretty interesting. I'm excited actually to see his next 2 books because I guess they're part of like a loosely themed trilogy. And I know that she's working on those ones next. And I'm almost more excited about those because I like this, but I'm curious about the ones that were like not as immediately successful.
Right. Moving on. A Spare Life by Lydia Dimkowska, I'm going to say. Translated from the Macedonian by Christina Kramer. Authors from Macedonia, and this is from Two Lines Press, who do very good things generally. I don't know what this one is.
Oh, really? Like okay, so Zlata and Zreba are 12-year-old twins conjoined at the head. It is 1984, and they live in Skopje, which will one day be the capital of Macedonia, but is currently a part of Yugoslavia. It tells the story of their childhood, from their only friend Rosa to their neighbor Bogdan, so poor that one day he must eat his pet rabbit. Treated as freaks and outcasts, even by their own family, the twins just want to be normal girls. There's twins conjoined at the head.
Yeah.
I think this one moves on. I'm gonna pick that.
Next up, Dumigolo by Boubacar Boris Diop.
Great name.
Translated from the Wolof by Vera Woofling-Lecky and El Haji Mustafa Diop. I don't know if he's related.
I think so.
Diop is from Senegal, and this is from Michigan State University Press.
Hell yeah, first time they're on here.
Yeah.
They've been doing a lot of like African and Arabic, Middle Eastern titles for what they're doing for their translations. And the guy who's like really involved that I've been in contact with from Michigan State is very like proactive, very adamant, very like good about trying to get the books some attention. So I'm really glad that they made it on here.
This is the first book to be translated from Wolof into English.
Yeah, which is wild too.
Yeah. It says here, it's a masterful work that conveys the story of Nguraan Faye and his attempts to communicate with his grandson before he dies. And it seems to be sort of echoing a traditional sort of story structure, like traditional to the culture, I mean.
I tried to get a review of this done by one of my students, and it was unreadable. So
unreadable.
Unreadable, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
The book wasn't unreadable, mind you. The review was.
Got it. Up next, and this is the last one I'll do. You can take over. Night Prayers by Santiago Gamboa, translated from the Spanish by Howard Curtis. This is Gamboa is Colombian, and this is the second book from Europa Editions. I was a little surprised to see this on here.
Okay.
Not necessarily because I think Gamboa, I read this, and he is a fantastic writer. Like really, really just very lucid, flowing sort of, the best sort of contemporary Spanish style. But it's not particularly literary. It's kind of a noir, detective-y, mystery kind of thing. Not like there are cops and detectives or anything. It's just that's how it reads. And I just wouldn't have thought this would have struck the judges the way it did, apparently.
Huh. This sounds better than I read Necropolis, which is fine, and Howard Curtis is great, and he got on me for not talking more about Necropolis before, so apologies in advance. I didn't really love it. I thought it was a little too smooth, a little too polished, a little too like, I don't know, like conventional in a sort of MFA way. So I didn't read this one. It's just been sitting around. But it sounds from the description much more interesting.
It is, but it definitely has what you're talking about, where it's very polished and you just read along and you don't think twice about the writing style, which, if that's what you want, this is a really good version of that. And it's a international version of that. And that's really interesting, but it's not, it's not literary writing. That's for sure.
So this is the fourth Spanish book on the list. Does this one make it?
No,
Okay.
I think. Yeah. All right. Go ahead.
I've got next one, Angel of Oblivion by Maya Hatterlap, translated from the German by Tess Lewis, who is the juror for the Poetry Prize. Hatterlap's from Austria, actually, and this is by Archipelago Books. I should know something about this book since it won the Penn Translation Award, and I don't.
I don't know anything about it either.
I know the cover.
I picked it up and it was like, oh God, no way. Isn't this one massive too?
It is. It's 250 pages, but it's Archipelago, so it looks bigger than it is. The description is a Slovenian minority in Austria. First-person narrator starts off with childhood memories of rural life. That's about where I stop.
Yeah. Yep. I'm with you. We definitely have taste, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm not gonna waste my time reading something for the sake of feeling like I should.
There's Nazi stuff in here too.
Yeah.
This is gonna make it on. I'm gonna pick that.
Probably.
I only got 9, huh? Okay. Next one, War and Turpentine by Stefan Hertzman, translated from the Dutch by David McKay. Hertzman's from Belgium, and this is published by Pantheon, which I think is the first time that Pantheon's ever been on a long list.
That can't be true,
It
really.
is.
I mean, I guess they don't publish a ton of books every year.
Yeah.
And so that, like, obviously a small portion of those are even translated, so.
Yeah, and this is an informed dislike. I don't like this book. I interviewed him for a New Literature from Europe festival. He's a very nice person. I am not a fan of this book.
Okay. Yeah, this didn't really appeal to me either.
It was one of the top 10 books of 2016, according to the New York Times book review, along with The Vegetarian. And it fits a very specific sort of like New York Times literary book sort of vibe, like Sebald Light. Very much a book.
Right.
But whatever. Great. It's cool that Dutch book's on there. It's cool that Pantheon finally has a book on there. Next one is Umami by, is it Lila Eufreza? Translated from the Spanish by Sophie Hughes. She's from Mexico, and this is published by One World. And Sophie Hughes, I believe we have mistaken before on the one podcast that had 19 errors on it. I think I screwed up who she was. So it's good to see Sophie Hughes on the list.
Yes. Have you read this yet? I think Emma read it in like one day.
I think it's probably great. I don't like the cover, so I just haven't picked it up.
Yeah, I'm definitely not into the cover.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to take over again.
Okay.
Last Wolf and Herman by Laszlo Krasznahorkai, translated from the Hungarian by George Zsörtes and John Batki. Krasznahorkai is Hungarian, and this is, of course, from New Directions. I don't know which translator translated which one, unfortunately.
I think Last Wolf is George.
For anyone who doesn't know, these are two novellas which do relate to each other, very much so, published in the same volume.
Also in my class. Third book.
I love this book. I mean, I love everything he does, but they're generally quite long and take some effort. These I read one day and one the next in a few hours each day. It's also like very much like my sweet spot of like plots and that sort of thing, hunters and that sort of thing. I really enjoyed it. If he won again, I mean, 3 times would be remarkable.
I don't think this book will win, though.
I don't think it's going to, but
Yeah, I don't think it's even the best book on here. I like it. It's gonna be a pain in the ass to try and talk about in class, but fine. But I like it too. I just don't know as a whole if it's strong enough to win.
Yeah, I mean, there are some other books on here that I agree. It's very good in its own right, but I don't know that it compares to those. And again, this is also subjective, like the term best, whatever.
Yeah, we could talk about that in a minute too.
Up next, Oblivion by Sergei Lebedev, translated from the Russian by Antonina W. Buis. I don't know how to say that name. Lebedev is Russian, and this is from New Vessel Press.
I used this in my class last year. Like all over this list.
This is another one that everyone seems to love.
That's interesting because this book is really hard to read. Like, not for content and not for, but I mean mostly because it's complicated and it sort of drifts off in ways that are like almost not incomprehensible, but like they contradict themselves. It's strange. It's kind of surreal at times. It doesn't have like a strong plot that's like easy to follow. It's a difficult book to read. Like, it's a difficult book. So I'm surprised that a lot of people like it. I'm glad that it's on the list. It has gotten like some good attention, but from like very rarefied sources. Like the Wall Street Journal picked it as like one of their best books of the year, but then no one else did, and I don't know if anyone else could read it. Like, so yeah, it's cool that it's on here. It's cool that New Vessel's on here.
Yes. Up next, it's sure to cause some debate. Thus Bad Begins by Javier Marias, translated from Spanish by Margaret Jo Costa. Marias, of course, is Spanish, and this is from Knopf.
How is this book on here? I thought no one liked this book.
It has its supporters, I will say that. I won't reveal what the judges told to me about this. They, of course, know that I'm a huge Javier Marias fan, and yet hated this book and didn't even finish it. I will also say that I saw a bookseller, whose name I will not mention, who is also a big Javier Marias fan, at Winter Institute, and we talked about this book, and he said, he acknowledged everything that I complained about with the book, and said, yeah, but it's still really, 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 really well written. It's still Javier Marias. So, there are some people you just can't, like, no matter how bad it is or how recycled it is, which is what I would say is its biggest fault. It just doesn't matter. People enjoy it that much.
Yeah. It was reviewed by USA Today with this. As a literary mystery, Thus Bad Begins calls to mind Paul Auster, Donna Tartt, and Carlos Ruiz Zafón. Purely as literature, it feels like an heir to the searching human nuance of the novels of Gabriel Garcia Marquez. That's a shitty-ass quote.
That's shitty. Oh, God. I mean, I feel bad for Javier with that. Like, none of that is flattering.
I instantly don't want to read this book.
From all of them.
I instantly don't want to read this book based on that. Man. Do you think this makes it to the next level as a Spanish book?
No.
Interesting. Did we answer that for Umami?
I don't know enough about that one. I'm going to say no, but...
Okay.
Up next, In the Cafe of Lost Youth by Patrick Modiano, translated from the French by Chris Clark. Modiano, of course, French, and this is from New York Review of Books.
I keep forgetting that he won the Nobel Prize. There was like, because I should have included that in the press release. But anyways, how many of his books came out last year?
If I had to guess, I have not looked this up, I would say at least 10.
Holy shit, 10? I think it's actually like 6, but it's a lot.
I think it was like 4 just from New York Review of Books.
Was it really? I'm trying to open the database. I'm taking the chance here. Hopefully nothing will go wrong. I'll be able to tell you in a second. Yep. Okay. So 2016. I don't have if there's the nonfiction one, I don't have it in here. But in 2016, there are 5. Villatrice from Other Press, Little Jewel from Yale, Young Ones from New York Review Books, and The Cafe of Lost Youth from New York Review Books, and Black Notebook from Mariner Books. But in 2015, which might be where some of these we're thinking of, there are 4 in 2015. One from Yale, it's Pedigree, Paris Nocturne from Yale, After the Circus from Yale, and So You Don't Get Lost in the Neighborhood from Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. So that's 9 books in 2 years. That is a crazy amount of books. So when someone was guessing like what books are on here, they're like Modiano. It's like good enough. Like yeah. I don't know how to distinguish any of them anymore. I don't remember which ones are which. I didn't read any of the new ones that have come out because it just felt a little overwhelming. But great.
Up next, La Divine by Marie Ndiaye, translated from the French by Jordan Stump, also a French author, and this one from Knopf.
This came up in my conversation with the Center for the Art of Translation last week. We were talking about Shen Sui's Frontier and like publishing someone who another press also publishes, which in our case, Open Letter does some of our books and Yale does some of our books. I said it was better that it was Yale doing it than like Knopf, because I felt like if it was like a Knopf, then people would say like, oh, Knopf's doing the good books and you're doing like the third-rate ones or whatever. And Two Lions does do Ndiaye, and they're like, we sort of had that problem when we've done her before too. But then they said that they didn't think that this book got any attention or any sales, and they'd be surprised if Knopf continued on with her.
Yeah, I looked up the sales. Emma loves Marie Ndiaye and loved this book. And I looked up the sales number, and they are not good at all, especially for Knopf. I'm sure they didn't pay a ton of money, but clearly more than what Two Lines was able to pay to the publisher in France. And so clearly the French publisher would prefer to stay with Knopf and the prestige and all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, I don't know that they could justify keep doing it if that's all they're going to sell. Either they need to devote some resources into getting her some attention, or they need to fix something if they're going to keep doing her.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate because she is a really, really beautiful writer, and I just feel like when her books come out from Two Lines, everyone in our sort of part of the literary world, clambers over her, and then one comes out from Knopf, and we sort of ignore it because for whatever reason. And
because a couple, and one thing is a fucking hardcover too, so I don't think people are going to buy it. But they did get a lot of good review places for this, all of whom are like, she should be like the next Fronte, or deserving of that kind of recognition. But yeah, I don't know. I read her from University of Nebraska Press. I guess the book came out in 2001, which instantly now I feel so much older. But I haven't read these recent ones, unfortunately.
That one from University of Nebraska has the ugliest cover I've ever seen in my life.
For any book or for just University of Nebraska?
Pretty much any book I've ever seen. That is the worst cover.
Yeah, it's bad.
God, like we had it at Albertine, and we would just we would have it on the table for like a day, and then one of us would be like, "I can't look at this anymore."
It's pretty bad. It is pretty bad. Okay, how about the next one is Among Strange Victims by Daniel Saldana Paris, translated from the Spanish by Christina McSweeney. He's from Mexico, and this is from Coffee House Press.
This, I think, is probably going to make the shortlist.
Oh, that gives me 11, because I was just going to say that too. I haven't read this yet. I've had it around. I just haven't read it. I know that he seems pretty interesting. I've read so many Spanish books. I have more than enough Spanish books that I read in my life. I just haven't grabbed it yet.
Yeah, I've had a copy for a while. I need to read this. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Moonstone by Schoen, translated from the Icelandic by Victoria Cribb. He's shown as Icelandic, and this is from FSG, and this is yet another book that I'm using in my class.
Really? I have not read him yet.
I really like him. He's very surreal, and the books are like almost like little novellas, little surreal dreams for a time. And this one has a real twist towards the ending, twist of an ending, and they're well done. This one. Okay, I'm going to make this graphic. This is the Chad moment of our podcast. This one, I was a little worried about my class reading, and like they actually came in this last Thursday, and they're like, so I started reading Moonstone. And that's quite a beginning, because at the beginning, a boy, it's referred to as a boy, is giving an older man a blowjob for money on the side of a cliff. I was like, well, it's just a thing. It's fine, but it's going to be one that like the students have a few reactions to in terms of all the sex content.
Okay. I don't know what to make of your students.
They read
in general.
Yeah, they read Savage Theories by Polo Alexarich too, which has like a crazy graphic orgy in the middle of it, so they're prepared.
Okay.
But it's quite a start. Do you want me to I'll do the next one. Memoirs of a Polar Bear by Yoko Tawada, translated from the German by Susan Bernofsky. Tawada is from Japan, and this is published by New Directions. And this is like the first Tawada book I haven't read because it's got talking animals.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you in that. I'm like, I don't really like animal books. It's not really my thing. She has touched on this before. The novella we did with New Directions, when I was at New Directions.
The one that Kodansha did, yeah. Bridegroom is a dog.
Yeah, there you go. I knew it was bride and dog. I couldn't think of the exact phrasing. Everyone loves this. I don't think Tawada hasn't come close to winning before, has she?
I don't remember. I know that she's been on the list before.
Yeah, definitely.
But I forget for what, and I forget when. But I'm actually entering into the database soon, marking all of these. I have like new categories, so I could be able. I think Naked Eye was on there way back when.
That would have been early, right?
Yeah, it came out in 2009. I feel like that was, but I might be wrong. But yeah. I don't know. I'm torn on this. I'm not going to read it, but I could see it making the shortlist.
Yes, I think it'll probably make the shortlist. Just a guess.
That's right. I end up with 11. Okay. I'll do one more, and then you can do the rest. Vampire in Love by Enrique Villamatas, translated from the Spanish by Margaret Jewel Costa. He's from Spain, and this is published by New Directions. And I really like Enrique Villamatas, but I did the typical American thing of like, oh, it's stories. I'll read it some other time.
After enjoying Villamatas, I think we've probably talked about this. Like the first couple of books I read from him, really liked him, and then I just got sick of him. I don't. There's so much writing about writing that it just irritates me. I just don't find writers, lives all that interesting as subject matter. So,
how many stories are in here? Do you know that off the top of your head?
I mean, we have a copy somewhere over here. Emma read it not too long ago. She is a big fan, and I don't think she particularly liked this one.
Oh, okay. It shows up in here. There's a lot. There are 19 stories.
Interesting.
I guess. Wait, what the hell is going on here? And you open it up on Amazon. This is bizarre. I think it's 19 stories. Let's just go with that. It looks right.
I don't think this makes the short list.
I don't either. I don't have this one on there.
I don't think it'll garner that much support. Moving on, I'll take the last three here. We're almost wrapped up. My Marriage by, I'm going to say Jacob, even though it's probably Jakob Wasserman, translated from the German by Michael Hoffman. Wasserman is German, and this is from New York Review of Books. This one is incredibly popular. Really? I don't know anything about it. Yeah. There's
a copy sitting on our desk just out of my reach, but I haven't looked at this at all. Even I assumed always that it was a memoir. So when it came up on the list, it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And I looked, it's like, oh, it's totally not a memoir.
No, I mean, it sounds perfectly interesting. A young writer goes to Vienna to escape his debts and failed love affair. This was written in 1934, by the way, or published in 1934. There he is pursued by a book-loving Ghana, a giddy, girlish, clumsy, eccentric, and wild woman, dazzled and unnerved by her devotion and attracted to the large dowry offered by her wealthy father. He thinks he can mold Ghana into what he wants, but no one can control her troubling passions. As their marriage starts to self-destruct, Herzog will discover that he can never escape here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I would watch that movie. I don't know that... Okay. Two more here. Moshi Moshi by Banana Yoshimoto, translated from the Japanese by Asa Yoneda. The author is Japanese, and this is from Counterpoint Press, who definitely does not make very many appearances on this list. So
no, it's incredible how long Banana Yoshimoto's career has been going on and getting translated.
Not only, I mean, she writes so many books.
The only one that I've read recently is The Lake, and I did not like that. And that was sort of the end of my time.
I read a couple way back when I first started bookselling, and yeah, really not my thing either.
Yeah, we used to sell them.
I definitely get it, but really...
This is maybe my least favorite cover.
It's a pretty terrible cover. I'm gonna agree with you.
Yeah, it's also confusing because sometimes it has the hyphen between Moshi Moshi, and then most times it doesn't. So I left it off, but I'm really not certain if that's...
The cover doesn't have it.
The cover doesn't have it. That's what I'm going by.
And the publisher's website does not have it. So.
But the publisher's description does have it, I believe. So,
Don't even follow their own internal logic. Last but not least, Super Extra Grande by Yas, translated from the Spanish by David Fry. Yas is Cuban, and this is from Restless Books. Is this their first time on the list?
It is.
Oh, good for them.
And he's got big hair.
So, did I tell you this story?
I don't think so.
I forget exactly what I was doing, but I was on the east side of Providence, which is across town from where we are. And the east side is where Brown is, right? So I'm driving through like Brown's campus, and it's, any college campus anywhere in America where there are students everywhere. And so you have to drive really slow because they're just crossing back and forth, blah, blah, blah. So I'm very slowly driving up this hill, very bored. And I look to the sidewalk, and there is what looks like, a heavy metal roadie walking down the sidewalk sort of by himself. And I was like, who the hell is this guy walking through Brown's campus? It's so anachronistic, and also it's Brown. It was just so weird. 10 minutes later, I was like, oh yeah, Yas is here. And I was like, that was very clearly him. He is quite a character, that guy.
Yeah.
He definitely stands out. And I have not read this one. My understanding is it's not even his best book. From those who do like his writing, they think the other one that Restlessted is better. But
I read that other one. I didn't like that one at all.
I tried the other one and didn't like it. I was not into it. But I don't know how this one struck somebody's fancy.
Interesting.
So you have chosen what you think is the short list?
Yeah, but I have 11, so that doesn't work. I guess I can narrow it to 10 pretty quickly.
Yeah, I can't offer that. I've seen the voting in capacity, so
here's I'll go with my 10. Here are the 10 that I think are going to make it, with maybe a couple that I don't have a lot of confidence in. The Q, Chronicle of the Murdered House, Zama, A Spare Life, War and Turpentine, Last Wolf and Herman. Is it La Divine? How did you say that? La Divine?
La Divine, yeah.
Among Strange Victims. I want to say La Divine. The La Divine. Among Strange Victims, Moonstone, Memoirs of a Polar Bear.
I think that's pretty reasonable.
I could see a bunch of the other ones slipping in here, though, maybe even My Marriage, maybe the Modiano. Yeah. And then I don't know. The other ones I don't have enough information. Angel of Oblivion was the 11th one that I have on there.
Oh, yeah. I'm not... Yeah, I don't know.
But since that won the Penn Translation Prize, I just have a feeling it's just not going to.
By the way, it is the La Divine. It's La, the French the, and Divine, but it's the woman's name.
Oh,
and so
okay.
It's jammed in there, which a lot of at a certain time this was a very common thing to do in France, these sort of religious sort of things, like Dieudonné, God given, is a name.
Oh, right.
So anyway, so it is divine, but the French pronunciation would be divine. So La Divine. Anyway, so elephant in the room. There are a couple books. Probably everyone is thinking or was thinking, since they've already seen this, we're probably going to make it on the list. The first, less controversial, I would say, although people might take issue with this because it has garnered so many prizes from so many places already, would be Vegetarian.
Yep.
Which is not on here. Do you have any thoughts about that?
The fact that it got so many prizes, that it was out for so long, that people read it in the UK edition as well before, which wasn't eligible, and then the US edition was out on January 2nd of 2016. I feel like it just sort of slagged down because of all the buildup and all the stuff. I'm not surprised by that. I guess I was a little bit surprised by it. I can rewrite my narrative to be like, oh yeah, there's no way that book's going to be on this list.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're right that it was a little bit of fatigue, or for whatever you want to call it. The same way that Bolaño, at a certain point, everyone's like, oh, okay, we've had enough. I don't know, but I do think people are going to be surprised, considering it wins the International Booker, and then is on the. Did it win some other prize? Am I forgetting something?
I feel like it was listed for the Penn Translation Award, and for maybe it was just listed, but it didn't win.
Right. Yeah, I think it was on the short list. But it was also in the New York Times 10 Best and that sort of thing. So I think people thought it would have been on the list. The other, of course, is Bottom's Dream,
which set up a whole Twitter storm.
Yes, it did, because there are those out there in the world who are not on our judging panel who feel that, by its sheer existence, and I'm totally paraphrasing the opinions of these people, and they have every right to shoot back at me if they feel so inclined. Please do. But basically, that its existence in the world, and by that I mean the fact that this book was translated, that Schmidt, is that his name, or Schmid?
Yeah, I know Schmidt, translated by John Woods over, I don't know how many years it took him to do this.
But the fact that it was done, and by the accounts of those who have claimed to have read a portion of this book, done well, because it does, there are a lot of puns and wordplay and things like that are just very, very tricky to sort out. The fact that it exists at all should be, deserves recognition. And I don't know. I disagree with that, and I think obviously our judges disagreed with that. This is tell me how many pages this is?
1,496, and it is the size isn't on here, but it's not like a normal page size. It's like 8.5 by 11 size.
Right, and it's massive, and it cost $80, and Dalkey clearly didn't send that out to all the judges. Apparently, some of our judges had PDFs.
Yeah.
Some of our judges also work in bookstores that probably had a copy. I will just say that I do think that they considered it, that its size and all of that were clearly prohibitive in terms of reading the entire thing. But I do think that they looked at it and they made their decision. So there you go.
I thought about this more and have a good analogy maybe. But I don't. It's so big. I don't think anyone. First of all, I don't think anyone in America has read this book. I'm willing to bet that I don't even think anyone Dalkey has read this book. I think they may have laid it out. They may have read most of it. I highly doubt anyone's read this in full at all, which is neither here nor there in a way. But I feel like at first I was like, oh, I'm surprised it's not on the long list. It seems like, it's important. It's huge. It's a accomplishment. It's according to the descriptions and what I've seen of it, it's a incredibly dense, whatever book, but it's the same as Finnegan's Wake. I would say Finnegan's Wake is one of the best books of the 20th century, but I can guarantee you get a group of any 10 people together in a room and none of them will agree with me. And none of them are too well, or one. But to get 9 people to be like, oh yeah, totally, this book that's basically unreadable, that appeals to 1/1,000,000th of the population in terms of just its general aesthetic and language and literary approach, should be on this list because it's that's never going to fly. That's just not going to happen. It doesn't matter, even if it was 300 pages, I think given the nature of this book, it probably still wouldn't have made it.
Right. I mean, I admit I was shocked when even Laszlo's books won the 2 years, because they're not easy to read and are so dense and
this is so far beyond that.
This is, yes, exactly, so far beyond that, in ways that almost render it not even a novel at this point. So I get it. I get what you're saying. The idea that this would somehow appeal to everyone and have champions who are willing to fight for it on this panel. And yeah, maybe it's a little shocking that it didn't make the long list, but at the same time, you should put books on the long list that you think should win, and not books that deserve some sort of recognition for their accomplishment,
Yeah, I mean, Jesus. I mean, you should just look at this image. I'll send you this image. Just blow it up and try and read the first paragraph and assume that you could find and the thing is, we're going to get the Best Translated Book Award has been well, why is it not on your long list, blah, blah, blah. It's for the best book. It's obvious, blah, blah, blah. At the same time, there's a bunch of other awards that this could qualify for, and it's not on any of those.
Right.
I don't think anyone questions that. They're like, oh, well, yeah, of course not. But like, I don't think it would be possible for people to read this book anyways in time for the award. But beyond that, I can guarantee you that more than 90% of any jury that you put together would just be like, I get it. I understand that people like this, but fuck that.
Yeah. And the other thing is, for better or for worse, the jurors and people like us understand the point of a prize like this, and the point being to sort of garner interest for these books, and of course for the winner, in order to get people to read them and to buy them and to support their publication. And giving it to something like this would be utterly pointless in terms of those goals. And I'm not saying that anyone on the panel or anyone suggesting, made their decision to not include it based on that, but I'm sure it factored in. It should factor in, right?
Yeah, I agree that it should. But I mean, even just on a base thing of like, which book do you think is the best book? There's a lot of people are going to be like, this. You might say that this is important for all these reasons, and it's very literary and obtuse, but for all those exact same reasons, it's like Guns N' Roses to me. Like, I just don't like Guns N' Roses for the same reasons a lot of people like them. And this is an extreme example of a lot of people might like this and be like, this is really learned and amazing, and look at all the references. And someone will say those exact same things and be like, there's no way. This is not good. This is just masturbatory in the most masturbatory way.
Right. We neglected to mention the 9 fiction jurors. I have it right here. So let us close with that and thank them for their hard work. Oh, I do have one thing after this. So Trevor Barrett, who runs the blog Mooks and the Gripes, Monica Carter.
Finnegan's Wake reference.
Yes. Monica Carter from Salonika World Lit. Rachel Cordasco from Speculative Fiction in Translation. Jennifer Croft, who is a translator and co-founder of the Buenos Aires Review. Lori Feather, now the soon-to-be-open Interrobang Books in Dallas. Jeremy Garber, bookseller at Powell's Books. Mark Haber, writer and bookseller at Brazos Bookstore in Houston. George Henson, World Literature Today, Asymptote, and University of Oklahoma, and a translator, I believe. And Steph Opitz from Marie Claire.
One thing with George Henson, he's also at Latin American Literature Today, which is the new magazine coming out of World Literature Today.
Cool. So I wanted to say, since it is relevant, that in the time that we've been recording, I got an email back from my friend who owns the bar. We are all set for the night of May 4th, which is when the winner will be announced. I do not know the date when the shortlist gets announced.
April 18th.
There you go. So, and then roughly 2 weeks after that, May 4th, which is just before or at the very beginning of when the Penn Festival is starting. So people will be in New York. Hopefully they can come out and come hang out and see you. I think I will probably be there because Emma is going down to New York for this Archipelago event with Donald Nicholson Smith, and I will probably tag along and come with you and announce the winner like normal, and then come back home and finish building bookshelves the next day.
It also is the day before the start of the consortium sales conference, which is another good reason that May 4th works out well.
And that's why you're in New York?
Yep.
So it all works out beautifully.
Yep. And Dubravka will be there. And get a lot of fun.
Okay. So yes, that's the Folly. I do not know the address. It's in Soho, so whatever, West Village, on Houston, between West Broadway and whatever's west of West Broadway. But I can't think of right now. Anyway, downstairs on Broadway, it's called The Folly, May 4th. Is that it? This will go on the website, so I'm repeating myself for no good reason.
That's totally fine.
That's it. We at some point need to talk about the amazing Richard Simmons podcast.
I'm halfway through just from this morning. I made my daughter listen to it on the way up to her orthodontist appointment, and she's like, She's like, I don't understand. Who is this guy? It's like, you need to watch these commercials of Sweating to the Oldies. And she's like, whoa, like, no concept. But she was getting into it. She's like, there's a mystery. Like, he's missing. It's like, this is a real life thing. whatever. So I have, so I got to catch up, but then yes, I'll be done by the end of tomorrow, I'm sure.
Yeah, I listened to it all in like 2 days, so it's very good.
Are there any more episodes coming?
No, it's done. 6 episodes.
That's it? Oh.
You'll see when you get to the end.
Okay.
All right.
And yeah. Okay. I will talk to you soon, and that's it. So anyone has any comments, just email us at 3percentpodcast@gmail.com, and also leave us a review on iTunes. We used to get more reviews. We don't get very many anymore, but it would be nice. So review us, give us stars, recommend it, get us more listeners, and we'll talk to you all in a couple weeks.